This is Anne from Yarn Folk, and I'm going to do a quick demonstration on how I handle bridging the gap between the last bound off stitch and the first bound off stitch when binding off in the round. And I just wanted to do this because I'm also going to post a link in my newsletter to a method that Marie Green of Olive Knits shared, which is similar but just a little bit different, and I'm intrigued by both. So what I have here is the cuff of a sock. The yarn is Knitterly Things Self-Striping Vesper yarn. The colorway is Happy Accident. And I am at the point where I have one stitch left to bind off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This may be more awkward than usual because I'm also trying to keep this in the frame of the video. So here we go. Just going to bind off that last stitch. So there we are with just one loop, and what I'm going to do is just enlarge that loop slightly. I'm going to set aside my needles, and I've already cut the yarn, so here's the end of the yarn, and I'm going to thread that onto my tapestry needle. Since this is sock yarn and a fingering weight yarn, I have a pretty tiny tapestry needle. So what I'm going to do now is come into that loop from underneath, and I'm just going to hold on to the loop a little bit and pull the yarn through. So now you can see I've got the yarn coming from underneath back up through the loop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my first bound off stitch. So right here, if we look, this column of stitches here was the first stitch in the round. And so that stitch was knit, the second stitch was knit, and the first was pulled over the second to begin the bind off. And so our first bound off stitch is right here, and I'm going to go underneath both legs of that little V. So I'm going to pull the yarn through there. I'm going to kind of, okay, so now you can see the yarn tail is coming up through the center of this. This is the last bound off loop. Comes up through that. It goes underneath both legs of the first bound off stitch. And now what I'm going to do is pull that. And now I'm going to take the needle tip and dive that right back into where the yarn tail is coming out of the last bound off stitch. So hopefully I'm not in the way there. Pull that through. Oh. I had an extra knot in there, so I'm fixing that. There we go. So now if you can see, what we have here is right now, this is basically a new stitch that I created. It's still a little large because we haven't pulled it tight. Now I'm just going to kind of adjust the tension there. And there is just a little bit where this is the last bound off stitch where that kind of pops up a little bit, but you can generally kind of work that in, you know, kind of roll that down when you're weaving in the tail. So up at the top there, I've got a pretty smooth line of little braids, and all I did to bridge the gap was just create another little loop that joined this first stitch and the last bound off stitch. Hopefully that was clear, and if you want me to show you this in person sometime, I would be happy to do that. Thanks.